Jim, welcome to Strasbourg.
Thank you for having me.
We're actually doing a double feature. We're doing 2 last films.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
it's the first time I'll see it in a cinema. I haven't seen The Wolf of Snow Hollow in a cinema, so it's like, with the first, in America it came out and it was drive-ins, but it'll be nice to hear people laugh for the first time. Yeah,
that's cool. You know, we have in Strasbourg, I guess you paid attention to the program, and we have this crossover section.
Yeah.
And crossover is something we had to bring to people to explain them that we could like mix different genre.
Yeah.
And I feel your movies are just like the perfect crossover example.
Yeah, genre fluid. Yeah.
So it's as much a comedy as real genre films. Do you feel these with the mixing the things?
I love that. I mean, like, I feel like when I'm watching a Hitchcock film and there's a good joke in it, I'm like, that's great. Like if Hitchcock is able to make me laugh 70 years ago, that's good filmmaking. And I feel like, I mean, if you're not making jokes throughout your movies, I feel like your audiences are. Like, they're watching the movie, like, this movie sucks, and they're making good jokes about it. I feel like you kind of have to predict where the audience is going to be on the roller coaster. So when we're writing films, we'll make it be very dramatic, and then we'll go, oh, that's not working, let's make that funny. And we do the whole thing out loud. We'll film it like this, and then we'll listen to it in a podcast form, and then think, no, this would be funny to do this. So we'll like actually write the movie and fit in all of these genres to make sure that they work over the duration of the film in order to make it as maximally interesting for audiences.
So it seems like what, in a way, what comes first, because we want to drag the attention of the audience, is the comedy.
I don't know. I feel like in order to have it be a structural movie that works, I always think about, for this film, the detective story. We try and make it like Chinatown, and then we put in stupid characters. So it's like dumb Chinatown, but the engine of the story has to work. And so we'll think of a cool idea, like a David Fincher movie, but then I'm acting in it, and I'm an idiot. And so it's like the audience is laughing because it's so serious in its narrative, but then it's not taking itself seriously.
It's a good example because Chinatown is really a movie about Los Angeles.
Yep, and a detective, and a lot of like looking out of cars and smoking cigarettes. Yeah.
And in a way, I think Los Angeles being the center of the entertainment world, I think your movie is also a lot about this world and Los Angeles today.
Yeah, it's we have a much uglier depiction of Hollywood than Polanski did, but our movie is Hollywood. I feel like. I remember Francis Ford Coppola, when he was producing and releasing Apocalypse Now, he said, my film isn't about Vietnam, it is Vietnam. And I feel that same thing about Hollywood, of like, our movie's not about Hollywood, our film is Hollywood. Anyway.
And to impersonate a shallow character, you choose to make a talent agent. Yeah. How does your agent feel about it?
Oh. I don't know. So what's interesting is because of the change in the film industry, so many of my agents have left. So 4 of the 6 agents that I had are no longer talent agents, and they're now producers. So they are now moved into this entirely new aspect of making movies in order to own them, in order to make more money from them than they could being a talent agent. They saw the WGA packaging fight as a potential loss, that they would lose the thing. They ended up kind of losing the thing, and so everybody's trying to restructure how they'll be able to make movies. It's an interesting time, but we might get into trouble, like someone might get offended from the movie. It's funny that like our fears in the beginning were that Hollywood was going to call and go, I didn't like your movie. And we would just be like, I don't like any of your movies. All of your movies suck. Like, I don't think that we'll get into trouble. And I think also it's a comedy. So if you don't get the joke, it's like, well, you have a bad sense of humor, or like you take it too seriously. It's like South Park.
Yeah, of course. And there's always been comedies about Hollywood. Like The Player, or like...
Sure. The Player is so scathing. The Player is such an ugly depiction of Hollywood. And when it came out, people asked Robert Altman, is it really that bad? And he said, oh, it's way worse.
The Beta Test, unlike your 2 previous films, you co-directed it.
Yeah.
Was it to focus more on the characters as an actor?
Well, with PJ and I, the way that we write is out loud, and so when we were writing the film, we would do each scene 100 times, where we had the full outline of what the movie was going to be, and we'd look at the scene and go, oh, let's do that scene, oh, let's just do it. And so we would like think about it, and then we'd go, oh, that's great, okay, cool, let's write that down. And so then that would become the screenplay. So we were kind of already directing the film together. It was just writing it. And then we make the film a podcast before we finish the screenplay. So we'll play the parts in the film. We'll have like a Zoom recorder and record ourselves acting out the full script. And then we have the full movie in audio form, and we'll put music and sound design in so we can hear what the movie sounds like before we finish the screenplay. So PJ was very much a director in that phase. And I thought, well, fuck it. I mean, we're already directing the movie. Let's co-direct this thing. And it was amazing. We got to just like work with each other. He's actually my best friend in real life. And so it was just this really fluid, simple thing that we were both working together to make. And it was great. I think I'll probably do it again.
Yeah. We can feel the energy between you two.
Okay, cool.
You're acting.
Okay, cool. Yeah. We have some intense arguments. And then my favorites is when I tell him that I had this affair, and then he stands up and he's like, oh my God, and leaves. He's like, he's so serious. He's like, this poor guy. It's funny.
I think you have your very own way to play.
Okay,
and people
cool.
must tell that to you all the time.
Okay, cool.
You are so expressive that
Sure.
it's almost like you're a silent film actor.
Sure.
You could be.
Buster Keaton, yeah.
Exactly. Is
yeah.
that a conscious reference?
Yeah, I mean, Buster was always making movies, and if the gag didn't work in the movie, you cut it from the movie. Like it has to be real. And so that's why we did so many long takes, because it was like very impressive for the audience. It has to be real. You can't cut. It has to be real. It's a relationship that you build with the audience, that I'm going to show you something very impressive. But then really, so much of my acting is I have a very expressive face. And so there are times in the movie where my assistant says, "Did your wife sit on your face this morning?" And I go, "What? What did you say?" And like the audience is with me in just these tiny facial expressions where all it takes is me going, and the audience thinks, oh, he's thinking about what that conversation was. And I love that. Like you can afford then to be very subtle in your filmmaking. You don't need a lot of dialogue just because of how expressive my face is. Yes, we've kind of like structured the way that we make movies around the way that I perform in a funny way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for everybody, I don't think, but it's okay.
I guess not. And you've been totally in control for your last 3 films and then short films before.
Yeah.
Do you still feel the need to go act for someone else?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who the someone is, but David Gordon Green called me to act in Halloween Kills, and I said yes, because I've always loved David Gordon Green's movies. He's one of the reasons that I got into making movies. And so he called me and said, "Hey man, you want to come down and shoot this thing in Wilmington?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I go down and I'm in like 5 to 10 minutes of that movie. I haven't seen it yet. But of course, when someone like David Gordon Green calls and says, "Hey, I need you to do this thing," I go, "Yeah, whatever you need." So I'd love to act in other people's movies. Nobody asks me.
Really?
Nobody asks me. It's crazy. Like I never get somebody knocking on my door, apart from David Green, to be in their films. Never.
And he's a huge director now.
He is,
in the independent movies field.
Oh yeah, and started doing George Washington and then All the Real Girls, and then was able to kind of do whatever he wanted. Did TV with his best friends. It feels like a similar career path to me, of like doing Eastbound and Down feels a lot like, you know, him and Jody Hill are like PJ and I, and it feels very similar. He's one of my favorites.
But I think maybe the other directors feel like you have your very own universe.
Yeah, sure, that's true.
That you need maybe to be in control, as we were saying before the interview. You write your movies, you direct your movies, you edit your movies.
Yeah.
You also, I think, compose the music.
Yeah.
I could go wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm a control freak, and sometimes that's used negatively against people who are coworkers or employees. But with artwork, I think it's okay. I think like that's what I want to see is movies that are very controlled and from a singular vision. Yeah. You know, I think it's very important. It's my favorite kind of artwork is done that way. But also the nature of making movies is so difficult. Where if you hire someone and you're paying them money to do something, sometimes they don't really care about the movie as much as you do. There's no way that they care about the movie as much as you do. So they do a mediocre job. And then you're like, fuck, I wish I had done that. And so really, so much of my life, apart from the team that I continually use over and over again, is me realizing that I could do it. And so I just have to learn After Effects. I have to learn, the software to mix the movie because the movie has to be great. It can't be mediocre. And so often through the Hollywood system, just in the way that people make movies, they can end up mediocre without having to be.
I guess so. And it's really amazing that in the way you work, because you were saying that you start with the dialogues and sound and doing it on an audio level.
Yeah.
But still, your movies are very visual.
Oh, thanks.
There are some amazing scenes, amazingly directed, and very powerful visually.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah. For the beta test, there was a cinematographer named Kenneth Wales, who is a buddy of ours, who was doing small insert and pickup shots for The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is how I met him. And it felt so freeing. He was so talented, and we were able to shoot with smaller lights than this. It was all like LED panels or like tubes that you could control from an iPad. And so it was very quick to set up the shots and have them look amazing. And so with the beta test, I was like, let's get him to do the whole movie. And it was his first feature film as a cinematographer. He'd been a gaffer and a shooter for 15 years. But our dialogue about making the movie perfectly fused of like, he completely understood the language of the movie so that he could say, no, let's move the camera over here, let's like do this shot. And he has such an ability to operate, to have it feel like a Bong Joon-ho movie where everything is perfectly meticulous and moving off of the characters. It's hypnotizing when it's done really well. I think he'll be my cinematographer for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So you see, you're not such a control freak.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you find someone who's perfect for the thing, who cares about it as much as you do, I don't have to think about production design because Charlie Texter, who's done all of my short films and all my features, is amazing. So like you find one person who is this juggernaut and you're like, cool, if I can keep hiring you, you're gonna be my guy for the rest of my life. I have so many team members that are like that, but it sometimes takes finding them. It takes like doing 1,000 projects and picking the best people for the job.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Beta Test is a tremendously fun movie in a way, but it also has, I think, the darkest insight on society.
Cool.
That monologue in the parking, it's heartbreaking because it expresses so much of what the world is today.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know how people leave the room. Are they just joyful or totally bummed?
I think joyful. I mean, really, the joke of the movie, the punchline of the movie is that parking lot scene where you see a character lie the whole movie. He's lying to every single person. And the audience is thinking, oh, this asshole, oh, he's lying. And then he has to be honest at the end of the film. And you see him admit to each lie that the audience has been tracking throughout the movie. And it's so cathartic for the audience. They get to laugh at this guy who's finally admitting who he is as a person. And it changes the power dynamic, the dynamique de puissance, where the audience feels more powerful than Hollywood. And so I think really the audience will leave the film laughing and being like, oh, these guys are fucking idiots. And that's exactly what we wanted people to think.
Yeah. Still very interesting. Well, thanks a lot for your answers, and I wish you the best with the film, which is absolutely amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.